Hey y'all, welcome. So I am here to help you guys build time off into your business systems. But before we do that, I want you to go ahead and stop here for a quick moment and grab the worksheet that goes along with it. There should be a link below so you can do that. Once you have the worksheet, come back and we'll go ahead and get started. But if you are continuing on, let's go ahead and do this. So what we will be talking about today is succession planning, how to create these systems, and also figuring out where you fall and how you continue on building out these systems so you can actually take some real time off. Before I begin, my name is Adriana Richardson. I own a company called The Lazy Millennial, and with The Lazy Millennial, I do process consulting work, operational support, and technical writing. And the short version of what I do is help you take the busy work out of your business so you can turn your tasks into clear systems that support long term scalability. Very fancy way of me saying I help your business grow by making sure you're not doing too much. If you take anything from this presentation, just please be sure to tag myself or the Lazy Millennial as a whole. And that's all I got. So let's go ahead and get started. So, first things first, delegation or taking time off is tied into your succession plan. I know this is something that we don't really think of, or if we do think about it, it's more so the time like, oh, I'm ready to go. And honestly, whenever you're building out your business, the infrastructure, all that jazz, you want to think about like who you want to put in place because it all plays a part in your succession planning. So, first, the technical term succession planning is pretty much you're identifying and developing potential leaders within the company. So, pretty much as a business owner, if you're watching as a business owner, you're figuring out what roles am I doing inside the business and how can I remove myself from them. And whenever you hire, and hiring does not have to be a person, like lately it's been AI, automations, things like that. So, whenever you're trying to delegate or remove yourself from a role, that is a part of your succession plan. So, whether you plan it or not, you are carrying out parts of your succession plan. So whenever you are figuring out what things you need to put in place, what tools you need to put in place in business, think about, okay, I don't want to go back into this role. So what do I need to have in place so I can make sure it continuously runs without me and I don't have to go back into this role? So that's the main thing. So succession planning again is just more so what are you doing inside the business, or if you what are you doing inside the business and how can you remove yourself from them? Now, the reasons why this fails, usually one person holds in all the information. Usually it's us as business owners. Like, we come up with the business, we have the creative ideas, all the stuff was inside our head, and people can't duplicate that. Tools can't duplicate what we have in our head. So that's one reason why it fails. Usually there's no documentation and no documentation in place. So when there's no documentation, there is no proof that it actually exists. So another reason why it fails. So if something doesn't exist, how can you hand off something that you have no proof of? So there's that. And then the last thing is there are no systems in place for removal. So if you don't have things that are duplicated repeatedly inside the business, so you can remove yourself, because like again, whenever you hire for something or put like a resource or AI or anything in place, you should not have to go back into doing that role or that process or that task. So if there's nothing in place for that, then there's a breakdown in it. So these are some reasons why that fails. So how can we avoid us failing this or it messing up? You build out systems. So I like using a little house for developing the systems, but overall, the main thing you want to know, business systems is nothing more than a combination of all your processes, tools, standard operating procedures, anything that relates to running a business that is built into your system. And it helps you operate efficiently, consistently, and it should not be relying on you. So if you are aware of these and you build these out correctly, you should not have to return to them. So this is a key way, like I mentioned before, like why things fail. This is a key way to realize if you have, well, we all have systems, but like if you are aware of the systems and what you put in place of them, so you can figure out how to go on to the next steps. So the main thing here when you're developing systems, you just want to make sure are the processes, which are the steps you take to achieve a goal, built to be repeatable. If they're not built to be repeatable, they are not systems. So how I like to break it up with systems and how to focus on them is that you focus on first figuring out what core business system or departments. This is what I call like this is what the everybody has. Every business has marketing, every business has sales, Every business has like general operations. Whatever departments that you have inside your business, you want to focus on one. So, like, for example, I'm going to use marketing. I love using marketing because that's one of the key things you need to do from the very beginning of when you're running your business. So, we're going to use that as an example. So, my core business system I'm going to focus on right now is marketing. And then the processes within the core systems, I like to call these subsystems because when you're looking at marketing as a whole, there are so many things that you do inside marketing. It's hard to figure out where exactly to pinpoint them. Subsystems help you pinpoint it. So, like my foundational system I'm focusing on is marketing, but I am going to focus on maybe social media. So, my subsystems, I'll just say two, just for the sake of the example. My subsystems are going to be social media, in particular LinkedIn, because I use LinkedIn a lot. And my other one is networking, in particular in-person networking. I like talking to people because I feel like it's a lot easier and faster to build those relationships. So my subsystems here, instead of just like focusing on marketing as a whole, like how's my company or how do I market as a whole, I'm going to break it up by the subsystem. So I'm going to look at my subsystem social media, LinkedIn, and I'm going to look at my in-person networking. So whenever you build or whenever you're building out the systems for that, it makes it a little bit easier to concentrate on what you're working on. So like if I'm focusing on social media or LinkedIn, I want to figure out, okay, what am I doing inside LinkedIn for each of these things? So like maybe I'm posting, maybe I'm doing, well, they don't have audio events anymore, but maybe I'm doing the live events. Whatever it is, you're going to figure out what exactly are you doing for marketing on LinkedIn and build that out. And this is also where all of your unique processes live at. So even if you have something that's really like niche, it should not matter. You are still able to build systems for them because again, you're just picking out systems are nothing more than you or the things that are repeating inside the business. So it doesn't matter what kind of business you have, like if it's truly original, whatever it is, you still can build system with them. And your subsystems are what help you build out these core systems and making sure things are repeated. So, like I mentioned before, again, I'm only using these as examples. I'm not going to go into too much detail for that. But the subsystems help you break down your unique processes on how you do things. And then with each process that you do, or which each task that you do inside like the subsystem, you're going to figure out why are you doing this? Because everything should have some sort of goal. And this is like the big key thing here if you want to realize if it's something that you need to focus on or not, is that, okay, I'm doing these things. Within here, I'm focusing on my LinkedIn, I'm focusing on in-person networking. I have different tasks within these subsystems, like my LinkedIn, I have different things I need to do on LinkedIn. You're going to ask yourself, why am I doing this? So, like, one of the key things here, I like posting videos on LinkedIn. Why am I doing this? I want to bring on more visibility. And then this is where you can kind of dig in deeper. Like, is it really working? Like, do I have a set schedule for it? Things like that. But overall, you want to make sure everything that you're doing with inside your business has some kind of goal. And if the goal doesn't help with your short-term vision, then sometimes you can kind of push it to the side. If it's something that helps more so with the long-term one, you can kind of like replace it or even put it on the back burner for right now. But all of this to say, whenever you're developing the systems, especially whenever it comes to taking time off, which we'll dig into that in just a moment, is you want to figure out or you want to look at what department or which system that you want to focus on, the core system. I call these the regular systems. Like we all have these, like all businesses have these. So these are like the core systems, main things. So like again, marketing, sales, daily operations, HR, things like that. And then the subsystems are your unique processes, how you do things inside the business. And then the vision, of course, is just why are you doing these things? So if you keep this in mind, it will make it a lot easier for you to build out what you need to build out, especially if you want to start removing yourself. So we'll dive into that next. We'll go here. And again, the worksheet helps a little bit. So you have these notes and all this stuff so you can map it out on yourself. I'm kind of breezing through this really quickly, so just say that. So next we have the 5 levels of business / succession. So I like using the 5 levels of business to help figure out which subsystems businesses need to focus on. And whenever it comes to doing your succession, because again, succession planning, whenever you're removing yourself from a role, you should not have to go back into that role. Like, you should be gone. You may have to do like maybe like check-ins and stuff, but like you should not be going backwards, having to stop and all this stuff. Like, once you're out, you should be out. That's the main goal. So with that, if you're somebody that's just starting out a business, again, I have this on the worksheet as well too. So again, I will be breezing through this. But if you are just starting out in business, like your main things that you're going to focus on, I put like some key problems you may see. Like, breaks may feel impossible. You are the business. You usually don't have automation or support in this level. So the things that you need to build here are your boundary system, and these are pretty much all your policies, the rules of the business. And it continues on to like beginner stage. A lot of people end up here, and even though you may not be a beginner in business, your processes may show that you may be at this level. So keep that in mind as well. So usually, if you're at the point where you can't take weekends off regularly, this may be a good level for you to start on, because a lot of people are usually at this level. So usually what you need to build out here is figuring out which tasks that you're doing are repetitive, and start automating and documenting those processes, so that way you can start removing yourself from that role. And then again, third, you may have too many tasks living inside your head, inconsistent delegation. By the time you hit 3, this is where you start hiring for operational support. So you're starting to delegate things that revolve around the day to day, and then you start centralizing your documentation that you start working on level 2. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because you have this on the sheet as well. But overall, the 5 levels helps you pinpoint, like, okay, if you're facing I put like common problems. Like, again, I put like little common problems. So like, if you're facing a particular problem, or if you're at the point where you're like, I can't take weekends off, or like, I would love to take off like a week off, things like that, you can look at which level that lands on and what kind of things you need to build out so that you can actually take that off. So whenever you do hire for particular roles, or you figure out, okay, which systems and subsystems is this a part of that I need to really work on, so that way I can delegate this stuff out, and you build it from there. Okay, so we have that. So that's pretty much the main thing for the 5 levels. This is more so kind of like figure out where you measure up. And the subsystems that let you step away, these are, all of them are important, but these are the main ones you really want to build out, so that way you can really step away and step back. And the first one is your communication systems. Who's getting notified, how they get notified, and when are they getting notified. Communication is key for everything, so it has to be built out. And this honestly comes from the boundaries that you set inside the business. So like I mentioned, in level 1, you're usually building out your boundary system. Even if you are by yourself, you still want to build this out, because as you continue to grow, you decide to scale, whatever you decide, maybe you decide to have a team, maybe you don't. Either way, you need to have this in place so people know how to get in touch with you if you're taking time off, like what happens to the projects, what happens to if you're selling products, whatever it is. People need to know. You need to communicate with your team, you need to communicate with your clients and customers. Communication, so that's a big one. And the second one, I put task management. So what kind of things are getting paused, what things are getting delegated, what things are getting automated. You want to figure that stuff out as well. So like, when you take time out, it's already done. And then emergency protocols. So what happens if you're unavailable unexpectedly? So like, how do things continue going? Like, I like using an example. One of the times I was supposed to be putting on a class for some other business owners, but I lost power in my area. So like, luckily I had a really good operations manager. I was able to contact her from like my phone and tell her like what happened. So she was able to at least put out a notice. Hey, Audrey can't do this, so we'll reschedule. Versus people just showing up to the class and I'm not there. So like, you want to plan for the unexpected, pretty much. So you want to build out some rules around that. And then finally, the documentation access. So if you are using a team, you need to figure out what central area you want to keep all the documentation in, and how can your team members access that. So these are the 4 main ones. Again, I feel like are really important, you want to clarify. And then of course, whatever the actual tasks that you're delegating now, you can do that and build out the documentation and things that are needed for your team or whoever to handle. So we have that. And then, how do you get started? So first, you're going to start off with what? What do you need to do to get started? So first, you're going to go back to, like, I had the 5 levels of business succession. You're going to figure out which level you are at, and you're going to start figuring out which subsystems you need to build out for that. So you have the main subsystem I just talked about beforehand, and then you want to figure out where you are in business. So like, again, you're going to look at your task list, your to-do list, calendar, wherever you keep all your stuff at. You're going to look at all the things that you have given yourself to do. And what I like to tell people is to figure out what core system or department does it fall under. So like, are you doing like a lot of marketing work? Are you doing things for like sales, like client delivery, things like that? You want to figure out where you are for that, and then grouping those tasks into the correct subsystem. So like if you're focusing a lot right now on client or customer delivery, you're going to group that under client customer delivery delivery. And then if you're focusing on getting more visible, you're going to focus on marketing, but in particular, you're going to focus on what is helping me stay more visible right now. So you're going to figure out, again, what level you're on based on like the 5 levels of business in succession. And then you're going to build out which subsystems you are currently focusing on for that. The less you do, the better. I will say that. And then what you're going to do is assign a break goal. So like, I always like to say, just start off with the weekend. The weekend is the easiest one to kind of start off with. You're going to give yourself a whole weekend off. I know for some people are just like, oh, I don't know if I can fully do that, but it's needed because you can't tell. You could come up with like all these policies and come out like with all these steps and stuff, but like you won't be able to tell if it's working unless you actually do it. So pick something that may not be fully super busy, or if you can pick like a time that's not like super busy for you, and then you're going to plan on taking these 2 days off, and you are going to prep for it because you have to take it off because you won't be able to tell what's needed unless you actually do this exercise. So you're going to use a break as a practice, and again, see what areas you need for improvement. And how are you going to do that? First, you're going to audit your roles. So whatever 2 days you decide to give off, you're going to figure out, okay, I'm about to take off. I'm just going to say Saturday and Sunday because it's a weekend, but you could pick any 2 days. I personally like taking weekdays off because I like when things aren't super busy and stuff. So I plan for weekdays off. But anyway, pick your 2 days and audit the roles. So like, you're going to figure out what can't happen without you. So whatever 2 days you pick, you're going to figure out, okay, what are the tasks I do on this day and what role do they fall under? So like, are you doing a lot of admin work during this day? Are you taking on like a marketing hat? Are you doing more sales focused work like client delivery, things like that? Are you packing orders? What are you doing? What are these tasks that you're doing for these days that you're about to be missing for? And then what you're going to start doing is documenting the repeated tasks that you do per week. So like if you're somebody, again, I use marketing as an example because we all have to market. We're all in business. So like, again, one of the key things I like to do is I post on LinkedIn a good bit, but I also follow up with people that usually engage with me a lot. So like sometimes my repeated task would be follow up with 2 people on LinkedIn and just send like a quick note. Thank you for engaging with me, blah, blah, blah. And I do this every week. So I'm going to make note of, okay, what is this task I'm doing? How often am I doing this task? Do I have a particular day that I do this? You're going to find all these things that you do associated with this task. You're going to document that task because, like, again, it's something that's repeated. And then whenever it comes time to actually delegate that task, you already have the documentation piece. You know what success looks like for that role, all the above. And this is kind of the event of if you have a team. I use people. I delegate myself out to someone else. So that's why I'm using that. But like if you're somebody that wants to just use like maybe automation, like you want to have this thing automated, like let's say people order things, you want like emails to go out with their thank you for your purchase down to okay, this says ship. What kind of automations can you put in place? You just want to figure out like what thing are you doing repeatedly and how can you make that easier? Very long-winded way of me saying that. And then the last thing you want to do, if you have a team, use check-ins as opportunities to test the handoff. So again, give yourself those 2 days, give it to your team, let them know I am testing out like what works, what doesn't work, and go from there. And then y'all just communicate after it's done, like, okay, what happened when you couldn't reach me, things like that. So like you start taking more time off, you already know what to expect, and it makes it a little bit easier. But you have to make sure you practice this so that way it becomes realistic and natural, pretty much. Okay, and that is all I have for that. If you have any final thoughts or questions, definitely find me on LinkedIn, or I am also on Facebook, Threads. I have accounts. I have accounts pretty much. So you can pretty much find me anywhere on as Audrina Richardson or the Lazy Millennial. Just shoot me a message on or comment below too. A message about the presentation if you have any questions about it, feedback, or if you have something you want to work through, you let me know that as well. You can scan this. I believe it just leads to my business card. And that's pretty much all I got for y'all. So there's that. I hope that we stay in touch. If you would like more, I do have a membership called the Lazy Systems Club. It is a one-time fee membership, and I kept it that way because it focuses more so on building out your business operations. And sometimes you just don't need support right then and there, and sometimes it's down the line. And I don't like leaving people hanging when it comes to that. So I have it as a one time. It'll probably change in the future. So just a heads up. But as of right now, it's just one time, and I don't have it structured as a regular membership. So like when you come in, there is no upcoming events. It's just more so if you have questions, it will get answered right then and there. I'll have office hours every so often so I can help you work through something. But other than that, it's just dependent on what the members need, and that seems to work the best. So if you want to learn more about that, there will be a link to learn more, or again, you can reach out to me directly. And I hope this was helpful. I am looking forward to hearing you taking some time off.